Okay, I guess we're live. Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be looking at several stories. We're going to open up with the fact that SNAP benefits are about to expire. They're set to expire in November. And after refusing to reopen the government over 12 times, I believe that that Congress has had about 12 votes or more to reopen the government. We see that the Democrats have repeatedly opted to keep the government closed, and them being the ones refusing to reopen the government and turning around to say that it is the fault of the Republicans that government is still shut down is glaring to everyone that it's all their fault that the government is still shut down. So we're going to be covering that story and a few others. We're going to look at the AutoPen scandal, the Biden AutoPen scandal, and we're also going to look at the success. I'd like to call it a massive success of the Asia tour that Trump has embarked on. Yesterday we saw Jasmine Crockett say that Donald Trump is busy flying to Asia and he's on a joyride while the government is shut down. The man is working while you guys opted to keep the government shut down. So we're going to look at all of these stories today, starting with the SNAP benefits situation. Now, for those of you who may not be following the story, and I assume most of you are, the government shutdown has been going on for about a month now. I think we're over 26 days now into the shutdown, and the Democrats have insisted on keeping government shut down, withholding critical funds for paying public servants and for funding subsidies like the SNAP benefits and so on. And they turn around and begin to blame the Republicans for the shutdown. Meanwhile, they are the ones withholding the balance of the votes required to reopen the government. It's a very simple thing to see. Good morning, Canary King, or afternoon, Canary King. How's it going? Welcome to the live stream. So, as always, before we kick off, please remember that you can engage in the chat, engage in the conversation. This is a conversation-driven live stream. We're going to go through the stories together, and then you can let us know your thoughts. Please be cordial. Please be courteous. We're here to have a conversation, not an argument. Sometimes we have arguments, but the idea essentially is to do so in a safe, cordial way. Personally, and I don't know if you're like me, we're looking for somewhere we can have these conversations without it devolving into name calling and accusations. We want to walk away from these conversations knowing that this was a good faith conversation and not a conversation where someone was looking for an opportunity to call us a racist, a bigot, or any of these dog whistle terms that tend to be used when politics is being discussed. Again, I would like to invite you to please subscribe, like and share this video. Like and share the video. It helps us out a whole lot. This is a young channel, and we value your viewership. We value your engagement, and that's why we would love for you to please engage in the conversation and share the video. And if you can, consider supporting us with a donation using the super thanks or super chat feature of the live stream. You can use the link in the chat. You can also go into the YouTube interface and join the channel as a member. It is a monthly subscription, and we would love to have you help us keep the lights on. So let's start off with the first story. The SNAP benefits are set to expire in a few days. And let's start out with a background on SNAP benefits. So here's an interview on Fox News where they interview one of the people who run organizations that assist the government in distributing SNAP benefits. Let's just have a listen there, and then we'll go into some of the reactions that are coming in from people who receive these benefits routinely. We'll talk about their reactions and give us your thoughts on whether their reactions are valid or whether it reveals something concerning about the way people see these benefits and how they conduct their lives, when they do so. So let's jump right in.
As the partial federal government shutdown continues, Washington state health officials are warning that Washington residents could lose access to food benefits starting this Saturday, November 1st. DSHS says the benefits will end on Friday because of a lack of federal funding. Family Works is a nonprofit organization based in Seattle that provides food and family support. Joining us now is their executive director, Marsha Wright Soika. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Hundreds of thousands of low-income Washington residents could lose access to food benefits. How would this impact Family Works' mission to alleviate food insecurity and ensure families have resources and the support they need?
If families lose access to SNAP benefits, we'll see more people turning to food banks like Family Works just to put food on the table. Most families who are receiving SNAP are already piecing together multiple ways to get enough to eat, like SNAP, WIC, food banks, and school meals. So when one piece of that safety net disappears, it puts a tremendous strain on families who are already doing everything they can to survive. And food banks in our state are already dealing with the largest number of people who need us that we have ever seen, and fewer resources to meet that need. So if the worst happens, it's going to put even more pressure on Family Works and other agencies that are at the breaking point.
Well, speaking of, how is Family Works navigating service interruptions and funding delays during this ongoing shutdown?
We're in the thick of the service interruptions and funding delays. Federal resources for food have been cut, slowed down, canceled, or completely frozen. And it directly impacts the families we serve and the food banks that are trying to meet the need. So at Family Works, what that's meant is that we have to purchase more food, more diapers, and more hygiene items just to meet the need. And even though we've been dealing with this all year, we're really afraid for what it will look like during the holidays, when you tend to see food insecurity spike because folks are losing access to school meals, or daycares and childcares are closed, and they can't rely on those meals as much. So we typically...
For context, yes, I say that I don't live in the United States, but I have been a beneficiary of the food bank program here in Canada. And when we arrived for the first time in Canada, of course, we were new and I didn't have a job. I worked now what's the word I'm looking for now? Minimum wage job. So we depended on the subsidies provided by the food banks, and the food banks are largely, at least here, are funded by the government, and then there are churches and other organizations that supply food to the food banks, and I've been a beneficiary of that. And once I was able to get a job and was able to do groceries, I didn't go back to the food banks. We used them for maybe a couple of months, and then once I had a job and I could function, I went on and I didn't go back. So I understand the value of these services. So I want to front load that before we look at the reaction of certain people who benefit from these programs, because the idea that some of them have may be concerning. Now, organizations like hers are responsible for receiving funding from the government, and occasionally we see that whenever funding from the government drops, the resources at these locations tend to be affected, and then it is covered by other programs that are being handled by churches and other organizations and donors, and we know that happens. But this particular situation is significant because this is a protracted shortage that has been engineered, I believe by this government shutdown. And the conversations that we're hearing coming from the Democrat Party isn't encouraging. Even when the Republicans have appealed to them to come to the table to at least reopen the government so that some of these funds can be released, or at least vote on releasing the funds while the government remains shut down, the Democrats have refused to do so. Now, we're going to just listen, let her finish her background, or and then we can look at the chat. Okay, I can see messages coming in the chat. I'm going to address the chat shortly. So let's just hear a little bit more from her, and then we're going to listen to individuals who are reacting to the potential of a complete unavailability of these food programs.
They see a big increase in November and December anyway, with the potential of the shutdown freezing the SNAP benefits. We are really, really concerned about what we'll see during the holidays.
Well, there were some recent federal cuts to SNAP anyway. And so what were you guys seeing from those cuts in the federal budget previously? Were you seeing an impact from that?
Yeah, we're already seeing the effects. We've seen a 28% increase in first-time food bank visitors in just the past few months. Our mobile food pantry, which is essentially a traveling food bank on wheels, has seen a 30% jump in the number of households it served. And our diaper bank waitlist has more than 150 children on it. So we've had to pause signups simply because we can't keep up. So it just shows how fragile the safety net has already become.
Yeah.
Sounds like the safety net definitely has a few holes in it at this point from your perspective. So what can we do to help? What can people do to step up and help in this process and help your organization specifically?
Thank you. We're really encouraging everyone to use your voice. So please contact your congressperson, your senators, and urge them to restore SNAP benefits by any means necessary. Please support your local food bank like Family Works. Donate cash, food, or diapers. Please sign up to volunteer or host a donation drive. And if you want information on how you can specifically help Family Works, visit our website at familyworksseattle.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.
All right, so I would like you to just do that. If you're watching and you want to support them, please go ahead and support them. Now, here's some reactions coming from people who benefit from these programs. Now, please keep the chat coming. I see your chat. I see it on the screen. I just want to kind of front load the conversation points, the talking points before we jump into the chat. We've divided this into about 4 segments, where we have about 4 segments today. There's an extra. We may or may not take that extra. So we have 4 segments. So I want to go through the stories in segments, and then we can discuss each story in the chat. So please keep the conversation coming. Now, here are a few people. We're going to play a few videos. Here are a few people who feel very strongly about the potential food cuts or unavailability of food from the food banks based on the government shutdown.
Kids have not eaten in 5 days. It is the taxpayer's responsibility to take care of my kids.
Trump done cut them food stamps off.
If you're poor, don't have kids, okay? If you're struggling, don't have kids. Don't bring more in. If you already have them, that's another situation. If you don't have them, don't bring any in. And if you have 2, don't go having another one. If you have 1, don't go having 2 more.
So they say $2 million is getting cut off this month for the scamps. I'm about to go find out if I'm in that number. In that ratio. It's been day 5 and I have not received no food stamps. My disability checks is on hold. My cash benefits is not coming no more. They're still pending. It is the taxpayer's job to pay for my kids to eat and for my kids to be taken care of. I have over 2,000 followers on TikTok and I can't get not one person to send me 50 cents. If you're watching video and you can't send me nothing, I'm blocking you.
All right, so that's some entitlement over there. Let's watch some more. We're going to let's watch all of them, and then we'll react to all of them. I honestly have stuff to say, but let's go on. Okay, so here's yes, we have people of color who benefit from the food program, but we also have other people who are not people of color who also benefit from the food program.
And next week, when millions of people are going to have to resort to possibly stealing in order to feed themselves and their families, and the government complains, because they will complain about the crime rate going up, even though they're the ones who fucking did it. Make sure you point your anger at the system and the people at the top, because they're the ones who took the food away from families and poor people and starving children. The poor people just want to eat. They just want to survive like the rest of us. They just want to keep living like the rest of us. So when you see them stealing, because you will, because they're going to have to, make sure your anger isn't directed at the individual. This goes so much deeper. It's time to flip some fucking tables.
All right, so she believes that it's justified when people decide to go and steal because they can't feed themselves or their families. And let's watch one more. Okay, this video doesn't seem to be playing, so we'll skip over to this last one. Let's keep going.
I'm out of the store. So they wanted $7 for this. Mind you, I don't have food stamps anymore. They cut me off. So I only had $22 left in food stamps. So this is what I stole. Okay, they wanted $9 for this. I said, oh, I don't got $9. Then they wanted $2 for this. They wanted, sorry, it's all fucked up because it's been in my purse. $7 for this. I'm making some stuffed salmon today. These are needed. I'm not paying $7 for that. Okay, let me show you the most important thing to me. Short ribs. Take off the label so that you don't beep. Get your fucking meat. How many do you think that I got? How many short ribs is that?
All right, you get the idea. She basically decided to steal and advertise her theft. All right, so let's look at the chat. Let us look at the chat. Okay, before we look at what Hakeem Jeffries has to say about the cutoff of these funding, we have Trump original. Okay, so I mentioned the trip to Asia. Trump does not need to take this trip. Trump does need to take this trip. I acknowledge that though, but I am not a fan of these foreign adventures. Well, we're going to see the results of this last trip, and we will talk about it. We're going to see the results of this last trip and talk about it. So let's save that for when we begin to dive into the benefits of his foreign adventures. Foreign adventures for war, that's different, or intervening in conflict situations and trying to bring peace is one thing, but trying to attract foreign investments into your country and landing over 300 billion in investments on this trip at least is very encouraging. Okay, so let's move on. I volunteer at a food bank. I volunteer at a food bank a lot because I believe in the mission, and it's an honorable mission. It is providing food for those who truly cannot afford it, who have fallen on hard times. Like I said, my family did benefit from a food bank when we first arrived here in North America, and once we were able to pay for our groceries and pay rent and do everything, I was still on minimum wage when I began to wean off the food bank, and eventually I got a better job and I went completely off the food bank because I knew that the food bank is a temporary measure, and if you're able-bodied and you have a family and you can take care of a family, you don't need to be a burden on the program. And so I took my family off the program, and we only went there for several months. So I appreciate the value of these programs. This is unfortunate. It is unfortunate that people that live in the States go hungry. All right, so it's sad that in a country that is so wealthy, there are people who cannot feed themselves. Now, where I might ask the question, because there are people who genuinely cannot take care of themselves. They are disabled. They are mentally incapable of taking care of themselves. Those people are the most vulnerable in the society, the orphans, the children who can't work. But when we begin to look at why the program is so burdened, you begin to find people who are able-bodied, who can and should work, not doing so. You can see the ladies like this driving around and stealing. She could get a job, she could, but she would rather not. So I am okay, so we're going to have a very spirited conversation. I am telling you my perspective, and you can tell me your perspective. This reminds me, I need to take my whole family to volunteer at the food bank. That's a beautiful thing to do with your family. It's a beautiful thing. It's amazing that you're doing that, and I respect that. You know, that's a great thing to do. Crossroads, it seems you don't understand the public policy around this subject, and I'd like you to explain the public policy to me, because I have done some listening. I try not to speak on things I don't understand. I will tell you what I have learned, and you can tell me what's actually going on, and then we can also do some fact checking while we're at it. All right. Also, it seems you don't understand American culture around stealing. Okay. While you're telling me things I probably don't understand, I would love for you to please tell me what those policies are. What I understand about the law is that stealing is wrong. If you're capable of getting a job, you should not be stealing. If you're a first offender and your life is clearly out of whack, then, I'm not a lawyer, so the law takes care of that. But stealing, everyone knows stealing is bad. Okay, if someone breaks into your home and steals from you, you don't feel great about it. There's a loss that you feel, there's pain that you feel. It is a bad thing. So I don't think it should be encouraged. Please let your voice be heard in the chat. Let's know what you think. I'm waiting for some explanation about what the policy is around these benefits, because it's been mentioned in the chat. I'm waiting for the dump on what the policy is, since it's been said I don't understand it because I'm an immigrant, and I own up to it. I'm an immigrant. Educate me, explain it to me, and then we can fact check to confirm if that is so. Let's see, and also explain to me American culture around stealing. I need to know this magical thing that I don't understand about American culture and stealing. You are projecting your immigrant experience onto natives without understanding how our society is structured and our public policy. Great, but let me explain these things to me. It's one thing to say you don't understand. Flip the script and help me understand. Itemize what these policies are that I don't understand, and then I will get educated, and possibly we could take a look at some of the records online that either prove or disprove the points. That's called fact checking. Right, so here's Hakeem Jeffries on TDSBC trying to pin this entire crisis on the Trump administration. Have a listen.
Johnson understands that the second Trump term has been a national nightmare, and the notion that the American people will have to experience more of what they are dealing with right now. Largest cut to Medicaid in American history, Republican healthcare crisis, threatening to starve children and seniors and veterans by cutting off SNAP. The administration is clearly trying to weaponize hunger as part of their effort to continue to try to jam their right-wing ideology and this partisan spending bill down the throats of the American people.
So Hakeem Jeffries doesn't miss out on this opportunity to point out that he's trying to jam, that the Republicans are trying to jam right-wing ideology. I don't understand what that has to do with simply voting on a bill or on a provision to fund these programs so that Americans who need these programs can be helped by these programs. Instead, it appears that the Democrats are weaponizing this situation in order to try to make the American president or the Republicans look bad. I don't understand why they don't simply do the right thing and provide these funds for these programs. The problem with this entire picture is that if you have a disagreement with the opposition or with the party in power, there are other ways to run your opposition rather than to use the American population as the pawns in the political game. That's the way I feel about it. The Republicans have said that they've called on Democrats to vote on funding so that while the shutdown is ongoing, these critical programs can be funded. The military needs to be funded. It took a private billionaire to donate money to pay the salaries of servicemen. And it's interesting that that's going on. The Democrats aren't getting the memo yet. They, in my opinion, and I could stand corrected in a few weeks, in my opinion, the public sentiment isn't going their way. All right. Now, I'm going to play one more video on this, and then we will move on. Now, here's another Democrat, again, trying to pin this entire thing because the government shutdown is tied to the SNAP benefits. They're trying to pin this whole thing on the Trump administration. And then, in a surprising move, CNN pushes back. Jake Tapper pushes back and says, look, what you're saying, you can say that, but the Democrats do have a hand in this shutdown and in the fact that the SNAP benefits aren't funded because you've refused to vote on funding. Have a listen.
Democratic senators from New Mexico, your home state, vote to open the government so that these SNAP funds are not at risk?
Let me be clear. The administration is choosing to starve American children with money that they already have appropriated.
I'm not applauding their tactics.
The White House.
Well,
no, I'm going to just pause here. The funds that has already been appropriated is about to run out. It's about to run out. And the Republicans have been asking for another vote on funding to be had. This clean bill is a Biden bill. It's not a Republican bill. But the Democrats have chosen to hold the country hostage in a bid to, they're hoping that this turns out into a black eye on the Republicans. And to be honest, I don't think it's going to work out that way. But let's see. If there is a crime spike, if this plays out exactly the way some of us are seeing it play out, we're going to have people hitting the streets next week, breaking into stores, attacking establishments like Walmart to loot establishments. And then eventually, when they're done with that and the government remains locked down and the likes of Hakeem Jeffries and this Democrat continue with the rhetoric that they're pushing out there, these vandals are going to begin to visit homes. So it's not an issue of us pointing fingers. It's about what is the right thing to do. And the lies or the excuses, whatever you want to call them, have to stop. And funding has to be released. I think that's a simple compromise that anyone would be willing to have. And then you can go back to, okay, the government is still shut down. We need this thing that we're talking about and continue the debate.
This is a choice by the White House.
This is also, Congresswoman, this is also a choice by Senate Democrats to not vote to open the government. Yes, it is. I understand why they're doing it. They're doing it because they want Medicaid funds restored. They're doing it because they want Obamacare premiums to be extended past the end of the year. I understand the reasoning.
Sir, let me just be clear. The money for contingency plans is sitting there. That is why the states are suing. The White House is withholding funds from
2 to 3
children
weeks worth
that
of SNAP
have
funds.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it may not be a big deal to you, but let me tell you that for the grandparents, for grandparents that literally are feeding their children,
my point is that it's a short-term solution.
In those accounts,
It's a short-term.
At the end of the day, people need to be able to feed their families, and Saturday is when those funds run out.
If you feel so strongly, Congresswoman, why not ask the Senate Democrats from New Mexico to vote to open the government so that the SNAP funds...
Sir, I am here in the House of Representatives. It is shut down. I am fighting to get the government reopened. I am fighting to get funding put back into SNAP that is already existent, and I am fighting for the American people. I am here. But show me a single Republican that is here. Not a single one is here to make sure that Americans are fed on Saturday. That is why I am here.
All right. I wish she took us on a tour around the Capitol building to every Republican's office to prove that there's no Republican there. So she can grandstand all she wants. The simple question is, why won't you guys vote to reopen the government? You need 60 votes in the Senate to reopen the government. All Republicans have voted for except one, Rand Paul. He has refused to vote for the reopening of the government because of his ideological stand, which everyone knows about. But we need at least 6 or 7 Democrat votes to reopen the government, and none of them have agreed to vote. Maybe Fetterman agreed to vote. I can't recall if he did, to vote in favor of reopening government, but he has been very vocal about his position about the Democrats' stand on things. Now, if you're watching, please consider leaving a comment in the chat. There's a very spirited conversation happening in the chat. Please engage. You're welcome to to be a part of the conversation, and consider subscribing, liking, and sharing the video. It helps out a whole lot. Now, let's go to the chat. All right, so she's using the Democrat talking points, and there's no hope that they're going to do anything reasonable to reopen the government at this point. All right, so back to the chat. So we're responding to comments in the chat. Now, here is the public policy. There are pools of demographic populations that are managed in North America. It is not usually discussed in the open because there are undesirables, okay? Managing those populations is part of public policy, okay? Let's take the first group, Native Americans, also known as First Nations or American Red Indians. You may or may not be aware that for centuries, the public policy has been to carefully manage this group. It is wrong, okay? Is that your statement? It is wrong, but it has been part and parcel of public policy. I know about the policy on the Red Indians or on the Native Americans. I do. There's active population management with certain tools, including food stamps to manage certain groups. It is not simply people relying on it till they get a job. Okay, I understand that bit. There's a lot more to this than the surface narrative that Americans are lazy and don't want to work. No. I'm not saying that Americans are lazy and don't want to work. That's not the narrative that I'm pushing. What I'm saying is, yes, you're right. I'm looking at this from an immigrant's perspective. You're right. And when several weeks ago, I made a statement on this show, and I said, I do not accept the fact that immigrants can come in and suddenly have the ability to run for office. I said at least 2 generations of immigrants, second generation immigrants, should be allowed to run for office. This is why. Because there are things we don't know. There are things that we don't understand. And if we come with our immigrant perspectives on things, it takes a long time to lose those perspectives. Okay? Most of us don't lose our accents. There are ideologies that we come with, or there are ideas or the way of doing things that we come with that we struggle to shake off. So that's why I said a couple of weeks back, let's say second generation immigrants who were born in the United States, raised by a first generation immigrant who understands the history and the culture of the United States, then they can run for public office. That's what I said. And a lot of people don't like that idea, but I know the weaknesses that we have as immigrants, and I know how it could affect public policy and things like this. I didn't know about the undesirables, but I do know that there was a program started in the 60s to cater to minorities. And a lot of people believe that that program that was championed by LBJ is responsible for the breakup of the family unit in the black community. And many people who are even of the black community don't agree with that program, the welfare program. I listened to a creator called Myron Golden. Myron Golden told a story of when he took his wife, when he wasn't wealthy, he was poor. He took his wife to the hospital to attend to their baby. And the nurse, talking to his wife in his presence, told her, look, you would get more benefits from the government if he wasn't in the picture. And that means that the policies of the welfare policies state that if a woman is by herself, she gets more support from the government, and a lot of women take that route. So there are a lot of objections to that entire program, and I have heard those objections, and those objections are coloring some of my perspectives on this situation. So please, I thank you for clarifying the public policy on these benefits. Now I'm more educated and I understand the position. However, I still do believe that more should be done to ensure that people who are able-bodied, who are able to and should work, should plan to get off these programs. I've seen people who were on the programs, not just me, but Americans who were on the programs, and they said that once they were able to get off the program, they got off the program. But there are people who are addicted to welfare, and they do need to get off those programs. And this has nothing, like, it's incidental. This conversation is incidental. It just happens to have come with the package. But I'm not saying that I didn't start this conversation to talk about how they're lazy Americans. No, we're talking about what's in the news. All right. So let me know your thoughts in the chat, please, or in the comment section. I'll pause to let you that, yeah, I've digested it. Yes, of course, LBJ used many tools to manage that population group. Yeah. So, guys, let me know what you think in the chat. We're going to be jumping over to the next story. Okay, so this is part of the Democrat rant. So we're just going to move on. So, if you have more thoughts on the first segment, on the SNAP benefits going away, your thoughts on the Democrats' play in trying to keep the government shutdown closed and to leverage it to make the Republicans look bad, let me know in the chat what your thoughts are. If you're just joining, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this video. It helps out a whole lot. All right. I'm going to go back to the chat. I just got a comment on this segment. That your narrative that Americans are lazy and addicted to welfare is false. I didn't say all Americans. Okay, there are a few, and this isn't coming from me. Okay, there are other Americans within the United States who should know this, who say that these other Americans who are addicted to welfare should get off welfare. So it's not just my sentiment. I'm seeing this being said. If all I saw online was people saying, if I had 100% in my feed saying, and not people who are on welfare, but people who are not on welfare on both sides saying, everyone, hang on, the government is going to come help you. Okay, just hang on. We're going to put pressure on the government to provide these funds. And it came 100% from both sides, Democrat and Republican. Then I know that, okay, there's something about public policy that skews this way. But I'm seeing differing opinions coming from Americans. So it's confusing to watch. But we'll see how it goes in the next week or two. That narrative is a cover story. All right. Again, we will see in a week or two. All right, let's move on to the next segment. Arnold Schwarzenegger on why he opposes California's redistricting. All right, now this is a very short segment. Arnold was brought on CNN, and Jake Tapper had this to say.
As you acknowledged, this all started because of redistricting in Texas, and this was Trump pushing Republican-controlled states to throw out their current congressional maps so as to cook the books, so that it is less likely for Democrats to retake control of the House during the next year midterms. I mean, is it fair to argue that do you believe that the Republican Party is starting this?
No, Jake. There has been gerrymandering going on for 200 years.
Yep.
Such extreme gerrymandering going on that in a state like Massachusetts, that has like 40% of the people voting for Trump, they have 0 representatives. The Republican Party has 0 representatives sent to the House.
Okay, so no one is talking about the gerrymandering that's going on in blue states, or has been going on in blue states for decades. It's been going on, and then all of a sudden, when Republicans get wise to the fact that they too need to ramp up on gerrymandering, it becomes this unforgivable sin that the Republicans are gerrymandering. Now, there's this thing that tends to happen when someone has borne a certain perceived injustice for a long time, and they decide to let's say do the same thing that their opponent has been doing, and they seem to overdo it. Maybe the Republicans are overdoing it. Maybe they just decided, okay, you guys have been gerrymandering for 40 or 60 years. It's our turn to gerrymander, and then they just went too hard on gerrymandering. I don't know. Okay, again, I'm speaking as an outsider, but it may be that's what's going on. However, Arnold is saying that this has been going on for a long time. Democrats have been doing it, Republicans have been doing it. And then look at a state like Massachusetts that has about 44% Republicans in the state, but 0 representation in the House. 0. So how did that happen? It happened because of gerrymandering. The districts have been so gerrymandered so that they have a larger population of Democrats, carved into those Republican red zones in order to win votes in those districts. That's basically what had happened in those states. It's happened for a long time. Democrats enjoyed the benefits of gerrymandering their states. Chicago did it. California did it for a long time. Now that the Republicans are wiser to it and are doing it, it's suddenly this unpardonable sin. All right, so it's something to look at and point out. And the problem I have, again, I talk about hypocrisy, because if one party is doing it and the other party decides, okay, we're going to do it too, and then all hell breaks loose because of that, then we have a problem. It means that there is hypocrisy in the system. Someone is lying. All right, and is gerrymandering right or wrong? I don't think it's right. That's why things like politics don't appeal to me, but I have to talk about it because I live in a political world. Okay, so it doesn't make sense to me, but they restructure these districts. It's called cheating, actually. That's one word to call it, cheating. So both parties cheat. If one party decides to be altruistic, but the other party is breaking the laws and the courts are siding with them, then the other party could say, well, fine, since it's now legal to do this, let's cheat too. If something was considered cheating and suddenly the laws say it's not cheating anymore, then everybody cheats. So I guess it's now legal to gerrymander. So why are the Democrats belly aching since they've been benefiting from it for a long time? Let me know your thoughts in the chat.
Think about that. In New Mexico, if 45% of the people voted for Trump and voted Republican, and 0 is sent to the House, 0 representative from the Republican Party. So there's gerrymandering, crazy gerrymandering going on all over the country, and we wanted to try to stop it in California, and we did stop it in California, and we went around the country. So I think this whole thing about finger pointing and saying they did it, so therefore we should doing it, that's not really the way to go. The one party should outperform the other party. It should be performance. And when it comes to midterm elections, as you know, always the party that is not in the White House usually wins by 20, 25, 30 seats. So what does 5 seats matter in the first place in Texas? It is crazy. Yeah. They should outperform them. That is the way the action is.
And I think that the Democrat Party has to focus on performing on policy. They've spent the last 4 years campaigning against Trump, even when they were in office. Everything that they did for 4 years, it was as if they spent 4 years campaigning against MAGA. You know, Joe Biden had speeches where he kept talking about MAGA. Democrats kept talking about MAGA. They spent 4 years trying to persecute conservatives and censor conservatives. They were throwing women who stood outside of Planned Parenthood abortion clinics praying. They put them in prison for standing outside of abortion clinics to pray. So it was like they spent 4 years just running a campaign against Trump, MAGA, conservatives. That's what they did. And they didn't really do anything positive policy-wise that could secure their position. And that's why they lost horribly in the last elections. Now, the gerrymandering debate, I've given you my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. The chat is still going on about the SNAP benefits. And I think it's a very sore spot. So let me ask the question, okay? You guys keep talking about the SNAP benefits. I will circle back to talking about the SNAP benefits. I don't want to rip you away from something that matters to you. So, so Schwarzenegger is revealing the hypocrisy of the Democrat Party, and that's that for this segment, because we're still talking about SNAP benefits in the chat. Again, this live stream is driven by the chat. Is driven by the chat and the comments. So please put your thoughts in the chat if you're watching, if you can. I know that a bunch of you are at work, so you might be taking a peek and stepping away. So I understand that, so it's fine. Okay, it's part and parcel of public policy. Still talking about SNAP benefits. Both sides are in on public policy. LBJ was a Democrat. Yes, he was. I know he was. This is a public policy issue. That's why I say you don't yet understand the public policy. Okay. From what you've told me, I understand. Okay, I understand. Canada borrows quite a bit from the United States. Quite a bit. I believe that there are social programs here, and I don't know anything about the social programs. Look, I didn't even know there was anything like unemployment. So when I lost my job, my former employer had to inform me that I had unemployment available while I was waiting to get another job. I didn't know about it. I could have gone a whole year without knowing about unemployment. Why is that? In the country where I come from, that doesn't exist. If you get fired, you're well and truly on your own. There are lots of things that I don't know. And so it takes having these conversations to allow me to understand what these things are. Now, public policy on taking care of those who are vulnerable and those who can't take care of themselves is a good thing, and I applaud it. It doesn't exist in third world countries. What you do have is private institutions like churches and NGOs supporting the poor. Individuals could sit up and say, okay, this has gone on for too long. I want to help the poor. And they can do that. But the government doesn't have a standing public policy on that, which is what makes the United States and other countries in the West or of the West who still do this so great. But that is also what makes them an easy target for people who want to take advantage of these programs. I used to work at a recovery house as a counselor. And well, not necessarily a counselor, but like a supervisor. I used to supervise individuals who would come to the recovery house to stay in order to wean themselves off drugs. And I would sit with them, for shifts and be with them just to make sure that they're behaving. And there was one person in there whom I found out later that he was receiving more than one check every month from the government. He was gaming the system. and that's the fraud and abuse that we see in these programs, because these programs are set up to be an expression of public compassion towards those who can't afford to take care of themselves. There will always be people who will game the system and take advantage of it. There are people who need it, who don't have jobs, who can't work. That's what the program was created for. However, there will be people who can work, but they don't work. They choose not to work. And then they head out there, game the system, overload the system with fraud, overload the system because they could work, but they choose not to work. And then that's part of the problem that's creating a lot of bottlenecks for the economy. Eventually, we're going to start having to deal with this, and with the Republican Party choosing to be the party that deals with the waste, fraud, and abuse, they are now the bad guy. Okay, taking care of waste, fraud, and abuse is a good thing. But when the Democrats stand up to say, you guys are trying to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, okay, we're going to tell the American people that you are ripping healthcare and food away from the Americans who need it. It's called lying. I spoke about lying yesterday. When you lie about what the other party is doing, it makes you the bad guy. In my eyes, I don't know about you. If you think that a party that spends its time lying about the actual policies, and that the same goes for the Republican Party. If the Republican Party says the Democrats have been asking for this money in order to provide free health care to immigrants, and if that's a lie, it makes them the bad guys. It goes both ways. And like I said, on the gerrymandering situation, if both parties are gerrymandering, they are cheating, they are both wrong. In my opinion, gerrymandering is wrong. However, if the courts say gerrymandering is okay, it is a tool of politics, then the Democrats shouldn't be standing up to complain that the Republicans are gerrymandering. They claim that Trump commanded the Republicans to gerrymander their states. Well, he's the leader of the Republican Party, technically, being the president. And so he can say whatever he likes. And every time that the Democrats gerrymandered, I would assume that they got the nod from the leader of their party as well. California did it. Chicago did it. Or Illinois did it. So why all the noise? Okay. All right. So so I've answered the last couple of chats sent about the SNAP benefits. Again, if you're watching, please join the conversation. I would love to hear what you have to say about this entire thing. Do you think that as an immigrant, I am completely ignorant about this entire thing, and the public policy actually favors people who could work not working and receiving these benefits? Now, there's public policy and then there's common sense. If public policy says that the state is allowed to do something you know, not you believe, but you know is unjust. Let me give you one example. It's an extreme example. The state is allowed to come into your house and to take your firstborn child and to force them to do work for the state for 1 year without pay. If that was a public policy, would you support it? All right. Would you support it? So when we try to defend things that don't make sense, saying it's public policy, we need to ask the question, yes, it could be public policy, but is it common sense? So I'm asking the question. I would love to hear your feedback in the chat. So let's move on to the next story. We're going to talk about the AutoPen. It's amazing how the AutoPen story has basically gotten a resurgence. Well, there was a GOP investigation, and we're going to listen to CNN talk about the AutoPen scandal and how they always bend over backwards to defend the obvious horror of the president not actually being the one signing these documents. So let's just listen and then we'll just give our reaction to it.
It's not about the pen. The auto pen has been used. Presidents, as you pointed out, used it. There's precedent for that. That's fine. The question is, did the president himself authorize or make the decision that led to the use of the auto pen? And what the committee found was that there were numerous instances where there was no real direct chain of evidence going from presidential decision making to the use of the auto pen. And in the last 3 months of the Biden administration, he was, I think we all acknowledge, and the reporting is very clear, in severe cognitive decline. And so the committee the committee, you don't agree was in cognitive decline?
I do not, because there's no medical evidence to say that. Now that's a political talking point for some of you.
All right, so that's another Democrats trying to use semantics to lie. As some of you know, my mother suffered from dementia for several years before she passed in March. And even without a medical prognosis or diagnosis, you could see that there was something going on cognitively with her. She could call me on the phone and we would engage in conversations for hours. And guess what? She was the one doing all the talking. But once she got, she began to experience these symptoms, the last real phone call that I had with her, she could barely engage in a straight 2-minute conversation with me. And that was the last conversation we had. So when someone tells you, well, a doctor didn't diagnose that he was in cognitive decline, whatever the cognitive decline is or was, everyone could see that he was struggling. So when they try to defend the statement, it doesn't make any sense. We all saw it. Those of us who were on a different continent saw it. Those of you who were there in the United States saw it. Only people who are dishonest, claim that didn't happen.
Right. But there's no evidence to point to that. Dr. Scott.
Do you know?
Dr. Scott, do you have evidence?
Do you know why the president's physician took the Fifth Amendment before the committee?
Oh.
No, the same reason why Republicans have taken the Fifth Amendment under oath.
Listen.
You're
here to argue the sharpness of Joe Biden. I commend you on your effort.
I'm not here to argue that. I'm just saying there's no medical evidence to point there was some cognitive decline.
Do you have eyes and ears? I think you do.
I do.
So
exactly.
The committee found that in many instances they could not trace presidential decision making to the use of the auto pen. It's unprecedented. We've never had this situation before. So it's not the use of the device. It's a question of presidential power. The Constitution says only the president can pardon, as you pointed out. But he has to make the decision. An unelected staffer cannot say, well, we think he's okay with us pardoning this group of people and let's do it. That would be extra constitutional. And now the DOJ has to decide what to do with it. I'm not sure what you do. I guess you go ask a judge if these decisions are traceable. But the question is, where does the power lie? It doesn't lie with the staff. It only lies with the president. The same would be true for executive orders. If executive orders were drafted and signed in his name, I think it's a legit question. Now, I don't know how a judge would deal with this if the DOJ showed up in court. It is an unprecedented situation. It's not a question about the signing. It's a question about knowledge of decision making. And I think Trump has knowledge. Look, I've been around the president quite a bit this year. I can tell you, the nerve center of this White House is in the Oval Office at the Resolute.
How much time did you spend with Joe Biden? I'm just curious.
How much time did his senior staff spend with him?
How much time did you spend with Joe Biden?
Zero.
All right, so he's asking a very good question, and I'm going to throw the question out to you guys who are watching. Okay, how much time have you spent with Donald Trump in the last 10 months or 9 months? How much time have you, he's everywhere. He's having interviews in the Oval. We haven't seen this much of the Oval Office in, I don't know, ever. Have you ever seen so much of the insides of the Oval Office in one administration that we've seen in in just 9 months? Let me know in the chat or in the comment section. We've seen so much of Trump that we're tired of seeing him. Joe Biden, you could hardly get, an interview. Unless we've been so memory hold that we've forgotten the last 4 years. The press could hardly say Karine Jean-Pierre and Jen Psaki were the ones who were the mouthpieces of Biden, claiming that Biden was fantastic, that he was busy and couldn't have a press conference. And when he eventually did show up, it was a horror show. So let me know in the chat if you feel like you've spent more time in the Oval Office with Donald Trump, with the broadcasts that we've seen and the speeches and the interviews and the press conferences that we've seen, the signing of executive orders like crazy, marathon executive order signings in the Oval. You've seen more of the Oval Office than you've seen in any other, in fact, in most other, I think every other administration put together. I think, my opinion as an outsider. Let me know in the comment section or in the chat.
Same amount as his staff,
I
his
haven't
senior
spent time
staff.
with Donald Trump, but I have spent time with Joe Biden. Here's what I do know: that Joe Biden, as testified under oath, every single person from Biden world declared that he was into it in the same way that Kevin McCarthy.
I think you should stay with it. You should stay with the sharpness of Joe Biden.
Kevin McCarthy said that Joe Biden's sharp as a tack.
You should stay with it.
Keeping the government open. Then
Keep going.
Well, I've got
the sharpness of Joe Biden is back on the table.
I've got news for both of you.
Yeah, so we still have people who are claiming that Joe Biden was sharp as a tack. Right. Now we have the GOP-led oversight committee saying that, look, they are contesting the pardons were valid since they were done by AutoPen, and that it's likely that Joe Biden didn't have knowledge of them being signed. Let's have a listen.
Tradition of AutoPens has existed in every presidential administration across parties. I had an AutoPen when I worked at ICE.
I'm sorry, Elliott Williams.
Elliott Williams literally had an AutoPen.
You were important enough to have an AutoPen. I'm so impressed.
I am important, Casey, but no, and so it's a common practice.
Did you allow people to use the name Elliott Williams without your knowledge of the document or what was on the page?
I don't recall.
Which is what is being contested. It is not that Biden used the AutoPen. It is whether he had knowledge of the documents that were signed using the AutoPen. What everyone is concerned about is, were there people who had access to the AutoPen who could simply write up a document and slip it into the AutoPen for signing, and Joe Biden or the administration didn't even know that was happening? Or were there people who simply decided what would be signed and what would not be signed without the knowledge of the president? That is where the challenge lies, not that the AutoPen was being used. The AutoPen is useful when you're signing things at scale. The president can't sit down and sign 500 individual documents that need his approval. He can't do that. There's better use of his time. However, when there are critical things like pardoning people, random people that the president may not be aware he's pardoning, or signing certain things into law that he's unaware that he's signing. Mike Johnson did an interview a few months back where he mentioned something that Joe Biden had allegedly signed, and Joe Biden looked at him with a blank face saying, I didn't sign that. And when someone tells you that about a monumental document that you are meant to have had a hand in signing, it should raise a lot of red flags. And that's really what this conversation is about. It is not about witch hunting the Biden era and looking for who to indict. It's really about how far the White House was compromised, in the sense that if the president wasn't the one approving the use of the AutoPen for certain documents, what other documents were signed without the president's knowledge or approval? That's the question. Now, do you think that this is something to be concerned about? Because the Democrats will say, well, this is Trump's administration doing yet another witch hunt. But as an American citizen, do you feel like this is an issue that needs to be examined? Because if someone could randomly put a document under the AutoPen for signatures that would approve certain things that were detrimental to you as an American, wouldn't you want to know about it? So let me know in the chat or in the comment section.
I'm asking you. If you were a government official and you had an auto pen, which you did, would you let some staffer sign things in your name without reading?
Yeah, here's the question. Was my authority delegated to that person? And I think they do have the authority to do so. Laws and and I'm serious, Scott, laws and regulations.
The authority to delegate pardons and executive orders, the President of the United States can say, you unelected staffer can go sign my name on a document that I've never seen for a decision that I've never made?
Quite often, the United States Code delegates authority. So through the President of the United States,
he didn't answer the question.
Whatever else, X person can carry out a function. And certainly that could be the case. Now, Donald Trump, for instance, in his first term, pardoned like 1,600 people. And I have a hard time believing that he was aware of every single person that he was pardoning. One could make a challenge. Every president does this. Now, if it's a question about Biden's fitness for office, did he know what he was? Of course, raise that question. But I just, one, given how vast the pardon power is, and two, given how comprehensive the use of auto pens are across administrations, I have a hard time seeing a legal challenge.
Nobody can be delegated the pardon power.
Yes.
It is a constitutional power.
Yes.
And I don't really think you can delegate the executive order power either, because the executive has to make the order.
So, Scott, the president...
So essentially, he shut down that argument because the legal analyst didn't have his case or his argument well framed. In fact, he messed up his argument. You don't delegate something that only an elected official has the power to do. For example, claiming that Donald Trump can delegate his presidential powers to decide to launch a missile or a nuclear bomb at Russia is crazy. But that's the argument that he was trying to make. That Biden having people sign pardons using the auto pen was delegatable. And when you're talking to someone who doesn't know, someone like me, you'll be like, well, maybe that's the case. But he was talking with someone who was an advisor to a former sitting president, and he said, look, this is a power that is given to an elected official. You can't delegate this to a bureaucrat. And that's essentially what shut down the argument. And I think I agree with him. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Do you think that more should be done to investigate what happened with the auto pen? Do you think that the Biden era documents need to be scrutinized to find out if anything snuck in through the cracks that had no business being signed? Let's know in the chat. Okay, these other stories don't seem to resonate with you guys. You guys seem to be concerned about the SNAP benefits more than the fact that someone was signing stuff into law that wasn't elected. All of these things play together. It lets you know whether the democracy that you believe is active is actually running the way it should. So again, let me know what you think. So a few more accounts about the auto pen from John Solomon.
His inner circle, Joe Biden's inner circle, covered up for the country the fact that he was in mental decline and that he was so unavailable to do his job on a daily basis that the staff secretary, probably the most important person in the White House, the guy you see next to Donald Trump every time he has a press conference and he's signing a document, Will Scharf. Well, Joe Biden's version of that person, Neera Tanden, didn't see him for 6 to 8 weeks at a time. She had no idea whether he'd approved the documents that were coming through her hands. He was an AWOL president in decline, and the people around him misled the American people. That's what this report says. And then the man sitting right next to you on the screen, Jim Jordan, releases some bombshell documents today in this other investigation. What do we know now? We know that the memo that the FBI used to open up Arctic Frost, which then targeted 160 Republicans, 92 conservative groups, 8 senators, 1 House member, a president, and a vice president, was really deficient under the guidelines of the FBI. The memo that opens up Arctic Frost uses words like evidence suggesting. It doesn't actually lay out a predicate. And it's looking at a crime that by submitting alternate or fake electors, as they use, or fraudulent electors is the term they use here, they committed a crime. The memo does not address the fact that in 2 prior times in American history, similar fake, fraudulent, or alternate electors were submitted. In South Carolina, 1876, Hawaii, 1960, no prosecution occurred. That isn't even mentioned in the FBI memo. So bombshell stuff from Jim Jordan and James Comer today.
So how was that document signed if it had so many holes? So this continues to open up the debate about what was going on in the Biden White House. We're hearing all of this after the fact, and even for those of us who watched the 4 years of the Biden administration and saw the clear weaponization of the justice system and clearly the weaponization of the presidency against MAGA and conservatives, the questions kept flying. How is all this happening and there's no pushback from constitutional lawyers or the DOJ? It was because everyone knew that if you raised up your head to say something, you get a visit from the FBI, and most of it was simply intimidation. I was listening to Tim Pool yesterday, and he was itemizing how the DOJ had announced that his organization was connected to Russia interference in American politics and how they were funded and so on, possibly funded. They used words like allegedly, but in the end, the well had been poisoned, because even after they dropped the investigation, the damage had been done. Investors were concerned that the company was connected to Russian misinformation projects. People who were regular Americans didn't trust them anymore. People were sending death threats. These are the kinds of things that happen whenever people in power misuse their power. Thanks, Precious Big, for following us on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube side, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'll give you a shout out as soon as you subscribe. All right, just like I give you a shout out whenever you leave a comment or in the chat, and then I give you a big shout out if you give a super chat or join the membership. So please consider supporting us that way as well. Like, these were things that were happening, and it's frightening because coming from a third world country where power is used indiscriminately by those who wield it, and you see it happening in the United States, I call it out because it is dangerous to let it go. If it's not punished this time around, it's going to repeat itself next time.
What are you interpreting from these discoveries? And the question I get asked most often, you come up with all this information and nothing ever happens. Now, things are beginning to happen that never happened before. Where do you see this going?
Well, I think Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are going to continue to provide extraordinary clarity to Chairman Jordan, Chairman Comer, and others to get the evidence to make the decisions about whether crimes were committed in this process. What you're seeing in Arctic Frost is a redo of Russia collusion, a weakly predicated case that looks like a Democratic opposition research project being done by the FBI, and you get the National Archives and Congress helping them. I think that's what this is going to turn out to be, another Russia case.
You see a prima facie case that they abused power and were spying on people without a proper warrant?
Yeah, I think Chairman has it right. This is a Get Trump investigation. Now the question is, what laws provide? Did people lie? Did they cover up? Did they commit crimes? Did they violate civil liberties? That's going to be Pam Bondi's decision. I think the grand juries are starting to really ramp up around the country. I think we'll see some more activity in the next few weeks.
Well, cue the COPE. They are going to jump up saying that this is the weaponization of the justice system. We're going to, hear that. Now, I'm going to ask you to do something, okay? If you've subscribed and you don't see me giving you a shout out, please just put in the comment section, subscribed. Streamlabs seems to be wonky. Yesterday, we had a bunch of subscriptions that didn't show up on the screen. I knew about one subscription, and it was because the person who subscribed was in the chat and told me that they had subscribed. So please, if you don't see your name pop up indicating that you subscribed, because I want to give you a shout out. Your subscription is valuable to me. You chatting is valuable to me. I will give you a shout out, but if you don't see your profile pop up on the screen, please, I would like you to do something for me. Just post it in the chat, subscribed, and then it would help me give you a shout out. I want to recognize you, even if you don't want to engage in the conversations that we're having about the topics and the segments. I would at least want to know that you're here and that you subscribed. And that's a start. Okay, so please consider doing that. I would love it. And if you subscribed earlier and you didn't see me give you a shout out, post in the comment section, I subscribed, and I will give you a shout out. Okay, and please tell the truth, please, because it will be embarrassing for me to say, hey, so and so subscribed, and I go into the back end of YouTube and you didn't subscribe. That would be naughty. Okay, so please consider doing that. I would love to connect with you at that level, and then consider leaving a super chat. It supports us and keeps the lights on. And then also there's something called a super thank that happens when you leave a comment when you're watching this, when it's not live. So consider doing that if you're watching this after the fact. Now, we have a membership, and we would like you to consider joining the membership. We have members only content that is available only to members. We have members only live streams, which I will be doing in the coming weeks. And there's a bunch of other benefits that I will be unveiling as we go along. We have mini courses for those of you who are interested in creating YouTube content or creating content. I have mini courses that are available to people who are part of the membership. And then there will be engagement back and forth where you ask me questions about content creation. As a member, I am obligated to help you out with that. So these are some of the things that are value added to the membership. We have a Discord server that would allow members to join the show and be part of a panel. We're going to open that up soon. Okay. So Canary King is saying that the auto pen investigation is a distraction. I would say, well, does anyone else who's watching feel like this is a distraction? Okay, let me know in the chat. My personal opinion is that this is important. It's important to find out what did happen with the auto pen. You're saying the auto pen is a distraction. It may look like a distraction, but there are tons of things that need to be investigated, and there is a DOJ to run multiple investigations. During the Biden administration ran hundreds of legal cases, not just against Trump and his close advisors. They also ran investigations against hundreds of people who showed up during the January 6th protest, okay, which they renamed an insurrection. And the Biden DOJ spent years hunting down every single person they could identify with CCTV cameras, kicking down doors, arresting people all over the United States and arraigning them before courts and sending them to jail. So they did that, and no one said that was a distraction. They said that was the worst thing to have happened since 9/11, and that nobody asked any more questions. If a president had an auto pen that could be used by a regular staffer to sign just anything, what was signed? Did the president know about what was signed? What if something was signed that takes away something from you? Wouldn't you want to know about it? So it being a distraction is one thing. Now, why do you think it's a distraction? Why do you think it's a distraction? There's a bigger question of Biden's mental capacity. I think that ship has sailed. Essentially, the US may not have had a president for a period of time. Well, President Trump, in his usual trolling manner, removed the photo of Joe Biden on the Presidential Hall of Fame and instead put a photo of the auto pen. So he essentially has stated the fact that America did not have a president for 4 years. They basically had an auto pen. Now, that is him trolling. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but I would say that there are real concerns about how the White House was run, operated, or led for 4 years. If Biden was in cognitive decline, and like I've said, I've had a family member who went through that, and it is clear as day to anyone who knows them. And for those of us who watched Joe Biden for 4 years, for 8 years as the vice president of Barack Obama, and we saw him, in between, during the Trump year, the Trump years, the first term of his administration. And then suddenly you see him when he's in office, you know that there's something wrong. So simply sweeping it under the rug is one thing. But I think the AutoPen investigation is it's a connection to the fact that Biden's mental capacity needed to be called into question. And I think an investigation is ongoing on who knew about his mental decline, who was in on the plan to hide it, to keep it from the American people. Like, these are the questions that we need to have. These are the questions that we need to have. So, yes, it may look like a distraction, but to be honest, just like one of the videos we watched, when the chief medical officer of Joe Biden pleads the fifth when he's asked to testify before Congress, you see that these people are making it harder to get answers. You can't just levy an accusation to say Joe Biden was mentally incapable of serving as president. That's an accusation. It's an accusation, and we don't simply judge people because they have an accusation levied against them. That's wrong. We need to go through due process to prove that those accusations are true. So I think this is connected to the entire scandal of his mental decline. Why was the AutoPen in use? It was because clearly the president didn't know what was going on in his own White House. All right, we're going to skip this video. It's a long video from I think it's the Oversight Committee, and they basically tell us stuff we already know. Okay, so it was queued, and there's no need to go through that. All right, this is a short clip, so we'll just go over it. Josh Hawley is giving us his own thoughts on this entire situation, on who was running the White House and who knew that Joe Biden wasn't essentially all there. Okay, Trizina T just followed us on the Twitch side. Thank you for following. All right, those of you who are watching, please consider following, subscribing, liking, sharing the video, and supporting us through your donations. Thank you so much.
Here's the deal. We have known now for a year that the Democrat Party was not run by we the people. They ignored their voters completely. It was run by a cabal of donors and insiders, of whom Nancy Pelosi was the queen. They were the ones who were really calling the shots. They were the ones who were really in control. And probably they're the ones who are really getting paid. I mean, somebody made a bunch of money on this, Jesse, big time. They made money on the pardons. The Bidens made money every instant that they were in office. Probably somebody made money getting him out of office. And I just guarantee you, if you follow the money, you will find the story here to all of this. And I hope that's what DOJ will do. I hope they'll go after the money big time.
Yeah, I mean, they fleeced this country. They stole all the money from the Green New Deal. And I'd love to see a cash for pardons probe open up immediately. And I'm sure Paulie P made some money somewhere. He always does. Guy's a genius. What can we say? Senator, great to see you.
All right. So again, more people saying what we are all thinking, but they are in office, so they get to say these things. If you said it, no one would listen to you because you're a nobody. But when you have an elected official, a senator, for that matter, saying, "Look, here are the things that we can see happened," okay, I think we should all pay attention. So yes, Yes, it's a distraction. It's all a distraction if that is all we get. If all we get is AutoPen for the next 4 years, and we don't have indictments, we don't have clear cases built on who was it that benefited from using the AutoPen to sign these things because Joe Biden was mentally incapable of functioning as the president of the country, it begins to give permission to all of us to begin to dig deeper into what exactly happened for 4 years and how did it happen. So this is a bonus video. Here's the TDSBC doing what they do best, lying that they didn't say something or that they didn't take part in a smear or a lie when there's lots of evidence showing that they did. They claim that they never interviewed or said that Trump or Republicans were Nazis, and then there's evidence. Enjoy.
I haven't suggested that Donald Trump is Hitler. I wouldn't say
I don't
that.
think any Democrat has. I actually, and I think it's a smear that they project back on to critics.
What is the natural extension, Justin, if he pursues this to Harvard and beyond?
There was an authoritarian leader several decades back called Adolf Hitler. Hitler came to power and the scientists left.
The military survive in that climate.
In the same way that it happened in Russia with Stalin, the same way it happened with Hitler, eventually you get generals and admirals that are in there that only tell the leader what he or she wants to hear.
To the extent that the rule of law and an assault on the rule of law was an obscure, intangible thing, we're now seeing it in action.
If you look back in history, you can see very similar parallels that took place in other countries that really went down that authoritarian road, including in pre-World War II Nazi Germany, when Hitler and Nazi officials basically took over Frankfurt University, which was the bastion of independent thought and progressive thinking and independent thinking, which is what Hitler didn't want. And so again, this is what authoritarians do. They try to control all of the aspects of social life.
When Trump talks about peace and Putin talks about peace, it's autocrats getting their way. That's it. And Mussolini and Hitler said they were being the purveyors of peace.
I resisted for a long time analogies to Hitler's Germany. I've got in my Substack today, though, it's really uncanny. The same episode where Hitler, early in his tenure, before he's totally taken over the government, some local prosecutors go after his brown shirts, and they convict them, sends them, and then he releases them. It's really the same thing.
Throwback to what?
Yeah.
Throwback to what? Poisoning the
blood.
blood.
I mean, that is literally Hitlerian rhetoric.
Right.
And
what do people think of what happened to us? The parallel here is to maybe show up on the shores and say, no, we'll go with Hitler. I mean, what do they think about the switching of sides with the turning of who occupies the Oval Office? I believe every voter who casts a vote, regardless of who they vote for, has to know that Donald Trump believes Hitler did some good things.
Well, when you have these actors, because if they say to you, we never heard anyone, or we never said that that Republicans or that Trump was a Nazi or that he's Hitler, maybe you should believe them, because they don't choose their words. They have these words handed to them. They have these talking points. These anchors read from a teleprompter. They say what they are told to say. So maybe we could make an argument to say they might be telling the truth to say we never called them Hitler, and maybe there's a way that could be true if all they did was read words that were given to them. But you guys did say these words. Your guests who are Democrat leaning, heavily Democrat leaning, who vote Democrat, called Donald Trump Hitler, alluded to him liking Hitler, alluded to them supporting Nazi policies, calling them. Look, twist it all the way you want. You said it. You implied it. We don't play childish games. Those are childish games. Well, I didn't say it, but everyone knows you implied it. Everyone who's listening and who's intelligent knows that you implied it. So there's no need to play these stupid games. And the TDSBC continue to play these stupid games. And guess what? Today they win the stupid prize of being called TDSBC, and they essentially have proven yet again that they cannot be trusted. All right. Trump keeps his foot on Biden's neck. There's serious bad blood there. Well, if you sent the FBI into his home and the agents figuratively dove into his wife's underwear drawer, scattered the entire thing, her underwear flying all over the place. This is a former first lady. Now remember, Donald Trump refused to go after Hillary Clinton because his words, he said, it would be a bad look, it would be a bad thing to go after the wife of a former president. And he refused to go after her for the email server scandal that came up, where she destroyed evidence that she processed classified emails through an insecure server in her basement. He refused to go after her for that. And then they went after him for frivolous things. Dove into his wife's underwear drawer. Okay? There are claims that they didn't go in armed, but there are other reports that claim that they were armed. And they went in, treated him like a criminal, the mugshots, dragged him through courts. All of it was supported by the Biden administration. Oh no, there is serious bad blood there. All right, so our final segment, Donald Trump gets a win. Jasmine Crockett said that his trip to Asia was more of a joyride. Not the same words, but she alluded to the fact that it was a waste of time. And then Trump signs a huge deal. Now, the South Korean president must love Donald Trump and must want to be like Donald Trump, because he fuels Trump's trolling level. Trump's ability to troll just got increased by 1,000 times, because the South Korean president buys him or gifts him with a crown in honor of the No Kings protest. Well, the next few days we will see if they take the bait. Oh goodness, they gave him a crown. And it's a big crown. So let's watch this and let's give your reactions to this.
The Cheongnam Gold Crown symbolizes the divine connection between the authority of the heavens and sovereignty on earth, as well as the strong leadership and authority of a leader.
경주를 국비대로 차리신 우리 트럼프 대통령님께 한반도에 처음으로 평화를 가져온 신라의 정신과 함께 한미 동맹의 푸른 길을 상징하는 이 금관을 선물로 준비하였습니다.
We present this gold crown to you on this joyous occasion of your state visit to Gyeongju, because it symbolizes the spirit of Silla, which brought peace to the Korean Peninsula for the first time, and the opening of the golden age of the Korea-U.S. alliance.
I'm like, look at the look on Trump's face. He's like, all right, do I want to deal with this? You know, like, okay, like these guys are resurrecting the zombies. They're gonna wake up. Crown. Like No Kings. Okay, they're gonna have No Kings protest 3.0, and this crown is going to feature. He got a crown. He sent out the vibes, and now they bought him a crown. So who's going to buy him the kingly robes? Okay, the trolling of this trip is like next level. All right, so yeah, he got the crown. Now that's on a lighter note, and on a even lighter note, okay, President Trump secures a $350 billion trade deal. Let's have a listen.
He's finalized details of a trade agreement with South Korea following his meeting with the president there. And now our president says that he's confident he can strike a deal with Chinese leader Xi in their high-stakes meeting that will happen later tonight. Lucas Tomlinson on the road today in South Korea. Lucas, hello there.
Well, good morning, Bill. President Trump has arrived here in South Korea with all the pomp this country can muster, including fighter escorts, the red carpet, and just moments ago, President Trump announcing that the U.S. and South Korea have inked a $350 billion trade agreement. Of course, the United States is South Korea's second largest trading partner. And part of the pomp were some gifts. And check this out, Dana. President Trump receiving, in essence, the crown jewels. This crown necklace, the highest award South Korea can muster. And President Trump is the first American to receive it. And Trump says the trade deal has been reached, and it'll be a grand total of some $20 trillion investment from around the world in the president's first term. Here's the president earlier.
I figure that will probably be a 20 or 21, maybe even $22 trillion of investments coming into our country by the end of the first year of my second term. And, you know, we had a tremendously successful first term.
Now, here's the scorecard from Japan. Toyota to invest $10 billion in U.S. auto plants.
Wow.
$30 billion partnership with Mitsubishi. The U.S., Japan, and South Korea signing a new tech deal. A framework agreement with Japan on critical minerals reached. And we saw similar deals on rare earths in Malaysia with Cambodia. And Trump, that's what he did in Kuala Lumpur over the weekend, Bill. Now, President Trump, serenaded by South Korea's president, who visited the White House just a few months ago. Tomorrow is the high-stakes meeting with China's leader Xi Jinping on trade, fentanyl, and soybeans. Last year, China bought $13 billion worth of American soybeans. This year, zero, Bill. One meeting not on the schedule, one with North Korea's dictator.
I know Kim Jong-un very well. We get along very well. We really weren't able to work out timing. We have President Xi is coming tomorrow, and that was something that obviously is very important to the world, to all of us. You'll be watching very carefully. We're meeting right here, and we're all looking forward to that. I think it's going to work out very, very well for everybody.
Now, aboard Air Force One en route from Japan here to South Korea, President Trump making some news. He says he has no plans to run for re-election a third term because he says he's not allowed, Bill.
Oh boy, the trolling that's going to come from this crown is going to be epic. Oh well, so that's the last story that we're covering. Let's know your thoughts in the comment section. Do you think that this crown is going to create more news? Because I think the Democrats are going to lose their minds when this crown sits in the Oval Office. Let me know in the comment section. Do you think President Trump is going to mount these relics or these gifts in the Oval Office just to troll the Democrats and the left-wing press? Do you think, like, I'm wondering what it's going to look like. All right, so the U.S. has again wins again from this trip to Asia with billions of dollars in investment into the United States economy. Now, there are people who are out there screaming that the Trump economy, he hasn't come through on all of the promises that he's made. He promised a manufacturing boom under his second term. Dude, people don't poop out factories from their behind when deals are struck. It takes months for the funding to be released. It also takes months for the infrastructure that is promised to be built. And then there are other micro deals that need to happen before everything kicks in. So we're looking at another year or so before everything, shows up, where you're seeing actual manufacturing locations in full, operating in full force across the United States. All right, so let me know what you think of the stories that we've covered. We've talked a lot about the SNAP benefits and the possibilities that could take place with the SNAP benefits, with the funding for SNAP benefits running out in a few days. There are people melting down. We did have a spirited conversation about that. Lend your voice in the chat if you still have a few things to say about that. We talked about the gerrymandering lies that have been spread by the Democrat Party. Of course, we saw Arnold Schwarzenegger talk about the fact that Democrats have been gerrymandering for a long time, and most of the states that have a disproportionate representation, when you look at the electorate, the demographic of the electorate, appear to be Democrats, with Massachusetts having over 40% Republicans but zero representation in the House. Okay, that's an indication of how gerrymandered that state actually is. We also went on to look at the auto pen situation. Of course, there's a lot to say about the auto pen situation. We will see if anyone does get indicted. I don't think that's going to happen. It is a very sore spot, especially when some Americans want to simply move on and have a better life for them and their families. It doesn't matter to a lot of people whether anyone gets indicted or goes to jail. But I think it should matter, because if these crimes are not punished, it just sends a signal that if you commit crimes while you're working for the government, I mean egregious crimes like signing documents on behalf of the president without his approval, the next person who has that opportunity will, and they would believe that they will get off the hook because these crimes aren't actually punished. And then we also talked about the lies that the MSNBC had been propagating, and then they turn around to try to rewrite history to say, oh, we never heard anyone call Donald Trump a Nazi, with all of the evidence out there. It's a wonder that they still have a news network. But you know what? There are people who don't care. As long as you tell them what they want to hear, and that is that you hate Trump too. For example, there are people that come into the live stream and they hear something they like and they stay, only for them to watch longer and they hear me say something that they don't exactly like. For example, if they hear that, okay, I like Trump's policies, they're like, yeah, he likes Trump's policies. And then I say something that isn't favorable to Donald Trump down the line during the live stream, and they're like, nah, this guy isn't radical enough. Guys, the point is, I have the right to say what I want to say, and I have the right to have my beliefs. If you think that I should be more hardcore about Donald Trump, it's up to you. But I like being balanced. I like telling the truth whenever I see anything that makes sense or doesn't make sense. I call balls and strikes. If I see something that the Democrats do that I like, I say, yeah, this is good. For example, we have John Fetterman, whom I didn't have a favorable opinion of years ago. Today, I have a favorable opinion of his actions, what he's done so far in the wake of the shutdowns, and how he has basically been telling the truth about what the Democrat Party has been about. So, I will call balls and strikes. I won't just say because he's Democrat, I have to hate him. All right, that's a mental disorder, and that is called also lying, because there are Democrats that have common sense, but it's hard to find any of them because most of them are so cowed that they can't say the truth for fear of being ostracized by their base. So that tends to happen. So yeah, and then we have the South Korea situation we just watched. What are your thoughts on all of these stories? Let's know in the comment section. And if you're watching after the fact, please leave a comment in the comment section. again, if you're watching for the first time, thank you for joining us. Let us know by subscribing and liking the video and sharing the video. Support us that way. It helps us a whole lot. It's a young channel. We recently started live streaming every day between the hours of 12 and 3 Eastern. We try to go as short as possible because this is middle of the day. Most of you are at work, but we thank you for taking the time to join us. Now, in the chat, we're going to finish off the comments in the chat. When a president isn't capable, constitutionally, the VP takes over. I shudder to think if Kamala took over. I think the people who were actually pulling the strings also shuddered to think of her taking over. I don't like using terms like someone not being smart or not being sharp or being unintelligent. But after Kamala Harris was allowed to go on a campaign trail for about 3 months, it became very clear that she should not be president. There was no reality where she would have made a good president. And when I hear people who claim that she would have been a better president than Donald Trump, I wonder at their sanity, because we all listen to her speak. We listen to how she had no policy position other than don't allow Trump get back into the White House. And you can't run an election based on hate. Anyone who runs their life based on hate or based on how they don't like someone is a dangerous person, because they don't have any plans other than the fact that they hate someone. Once that individual is taken out of the equation, they need someone else to hate. And that someone else could be you. You need to work with people who are focused on building things, who are focused on developing things, not focused on hating someone. And sadly, most of the Democrat Party has been focused on simply hating people and pointing out things that would drive people to be afraid, so afraid that they would rather choose them. And most of the fear-mongering have been lies from everything that we have seen so far. All right. Thank you guys for all of the support watching the live stream. Usually, this last leg of the live stream is when we have conversations, we chat, and we engage. If you do have questions and if you have comments to make, let's have them at this tail end. If you feel like you want to have a conversation, I'm all ears. But if you are not open to have a conversation at this time, that's fine as well. We've had a spirited conversation about the SNAP benefits. And honestly, let's see how this turns out in the days to come. Thanks for being a part of the live stream. I do appreciate you being here and joining us. Thank you for the subscriptions and the follows and the likes and the shares. I do appreciate it. So until next time, God bless you, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.